This is our news, the weekend edition, and on the broadcast tonight, the opposition leader questions the Prime Minister's plans to redevelop the Arawak Key and Junkanoo Beach area. Plus, a man succumbs to gunshot injuries in Grand Bahama. And recent comments by the House Speaker gets the endorsement of an outspoken backbencher.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Knowles, and thanks so much for joining us. Topping news tonight, opposition leader Philip Brave Davis is questioning the Prime Minister's recent announcement of plans to redevelop the Junkanoo Beach and Arawak Key area. Davis says those plans were not only surprising, but also confusing. As he said, they seemingly clash with other previously announced redevelopment initiatives for the area. Our Jasmine Brown has more in this report.
Well, I think that was a knee-jerk response to the fact that there were no plans that were quite visible coming from the budget. Because you recall that despite his announcements of those plans, there was no allocation made for it.
Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis announced in the House of Assembly last month plans for an overhaul of the Strip. It was a major part of the PM's budget communication as he produced photos and architectural renderings of the planned work. However, the PM failed to provide a cost to taxpayers or timeline of completion. Davis says what's even more troubling is that it is not the first set of grand plans announced for the area.
You would have heard before the Minister of Tourism speaking to the redevelopment of Junkanoo Beach. So what has happened to the Minister of Tourism's plans with that? But overall, what I can say to you is that from the approval of the acquisition of the point, right, part of the development plan of the point was to include a redevelopment of Junkanoo Beach right to the fish fry to make it more cultural and more authentic, and to ensure that we could have a place that people could truly enjoy. So there are plans in place, with the point for the redevelopment. So now it seems that we have three plans, one by the Igler, one by the Prime Minister, and one that was left in place by us.
Arawak Key and Junkanoo Beach will receive an extensive overhaul and will feature a sky bridge as well as tax-free zoning as an incentive for Bahamian businesses.
Now, which one they're going to go with, I don't know. But what I can say is that it is nothing but promises that finds itself nowhere in this budget. And for him to have announced it at this time in the budget debate, you would expect it to be reflected in his budgetary allocation.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
In news from the crime beat, police in Grand Bahama are investigating the country's latest homicide after a man was found suffering from multiple gunshot wounds around 2:30 this morning. When officers arrived to the West Atlantic Drive area, they met the man lying on the ground with gunshot injuries to the abdomen and back. Police say the victim reported that he was approached by two males who shot him before running away. The man was taken to the Moran Memorial Hospital, where he later died. Grand Bahama Police also investigating an armed robbery which took place shortly before 2 a.m. Sunday. Officers were called to a business establishment on the Mall Drive, where they were told that two gunmen entered the business, held everyone at bay, and robbed them of personal items before making good their escape on foot. Anyone with information on any of these matters are asked to contact police. And back here in the capital, police were busy investigating 3 armed robberies on Saturday, making headway into one of those cases with the arrest of a suspect. In the first incident, a man was walking on Faith Avenue South shortly before 6 a.m. when he was robbed of cash and other items by an armed man. The robber made his escape in a white Honda car with partial license plate number 3297. About 4 hours later, a woman was robbed of cash while at her home on Somerset Way off Mermaid Boulevard. We're told the robber made his escape in a silver Nissan Sylphy license plate AP5644. And in the third incident, a man was walking on Soldier Road around 4 p.m. when he was approached by two armed men. The men reportedly beat the man about the body and robbed him of cash and a cell phone. However, a short time later, police took a 26-year-old man into custody who is assisting with this investigation. In other news, outspoken MP Frederick McAlpine says he fully supports House Speaker Halton Moultrie, who slandered the country's current system of governance. Jared Higgs has more.
The House Speaker told a visiting group to the House of Assembly that whenever the executive outnumbers the backbench and opposition combined, the House of Assembly becomes the rubber stamp of the executive branch. He also warned that as long as there is executive control of the legislative branch, plunder and corruption will continue. McAlpine agreed.
Let's face it, you cannot have a parliament that is basically controlled by a cabinet, which then allows basically the legislative body to become a rubber stamp, just like that of the upper house. It's just not fair.
Moultrie also stated that when Parliament becomes a rubber stamp, accountability and transparency fly out the window. McAlpine pointed to the ratio of Parliament to Cabinet in other countries to make the point that the Bahamas is not engaging in best practices.
Let's just look at London, Mother Britain. Their Parliament has 650 members of Parliament. But yet, with 650 members of Parliament, the Cabinet of Britain is only 22 members. In Canada, the parliamentary has 338 members, but yet the cabinet is only 35 members, less than 10%.
Now, McAlpine says compare that to the Bahamas' system of governance.
We in the Bahamas have 35 members of parliament on the government side, and approximately 22 of them, and who's not in the cabinet is now either a executive chairman. So basically, your legislative body has been weakened. People don't send members of parliament to just be rubber stamps and to say yes sir and yes massa.
To the contrary, McAlpine says the population craves robust representation.
They send them there because they hope that they can think, they have opinions, and that they will at least express the views and feelings of the constituents who sent them there. We're not robots. People who sit in the House must be able to speak, articulate, and think as it relates to matters. And if the executive branch brings a piece of legislation to the House, then the Parliament should be in the position to say, listen, the people don't want this, go back, redo this, rethink this legislation, and bring it back.
There are currently 18 cabinet ministers. The Pine Ridge MP says he thinks cabinet should be made up of no more than 13 people. Asked whether Parliament should have more than 39 seats, McAlpine had this response.
Based on what I just said with the ratio in Britain and Canada, to be honest with you, with a population of just approximately 450,000, the reality is perhaps maybe the Parliament is too big. Maybe we need to consider making our size smaller based on the population and the demographics of our country. Yes, you need representation, but 39 seats, I'm saying to you, Britain has 650 seats in Parliament, and they've got millions of people. Canada has the same situation, and their cabinet is less than 10% of the sitting members of Parliament.
Reporting for Our News Weekend, I'm Jared Higgs.
Still ahead, find out why there will be radio silence tomorrow. That story and more when Our News, the Weekend Edition, returns.